I hate to take away the spotlight from the movie I'm about to review, but I really just have to say a couple of things I forgot to say in my review for English Only Please, mainly about Antoinette Jadane, who co-wrote that movie. It's amazing to me that that's pretty much her fourth movie released in 2014. She directed Beauty in a Bottle, she co-directed Relax Is Just Pag-ibig or Relax Is Just Love in English, and she wrote and directed that thing called Tadhana or that thing called Destiny, and she now co-wrote English Only Please, and that's amazing to me. And not only has she released four movies in 1 year, but she has really kind of left her stamp on the Filipino romantic comedy genre because you'll notice a lot of similarities between English Only Please and that thing called Tadhana. And just because she does the same thing twice doesn't mean she's boring or generic. She's really good at what she does, and I just can't wait to see what she has next. So yeah, and on to this review. Feng Shui 2 is directed by Chito Esronio, co-written by him and Roy Iglesias, just like the first one, and this one stars Coco Martin, Chris Aquino again, Cherry Pie Picache, and Junie Gamboa. Feng Shui 2 takes place 10 years after the original, just like in real life, and it centers around, at first at least, it centers around Lester, played by Coco Martin, who's this thief from a poor community who manages to get his hands on the same bagua that was supposedly destroyed in the first movie. Of course, the same pattern repeats. He gets lots of good luck, but his family begins to die as they move to a new suburban place out of that poor community. But then the bagua seems to be pulling in all its former owners and plans to kill all of them to kind of like reset the whole zodiac cycle thing so it can, begin the curse anew. And I think it's worth noting that this is the first Filipino movie to be shown in 4D, which basically means 3D with vibrating seats. I didn't watch it in 4D, I just watched it in regular 2D, but I just thought I had to point that out. But either way, I think that Feng Shui 2 has incredible visuals, surprisingly. Chita Estronio again knocks it out of the park directing wise, but I think the movie as a whole is just really kind of ridiculous, especially with its writing. First of all, like I said, this movie looks great. The cinematography is very, very sharp, and it really kind of heightens that feeling of dread in the environment, even if scary stuff isn't happening. Whereas the first movie was just kind of boring until like the ghosts started popping up. Here in this movie, like just the environments they use and the crispness of the cinematography just makes it feel really creepy, even if nothing really creepy is happening, and I think it's a really good feat. It does get quite grainy later on, but overall I think it's a very well lit movie, and it uses those psychedelic colors that were present in the first movie, like really bright reds and greens and whatnot. I think the locations they use in this movie are put to very good use, especially like the first 20 minutes takes place in like Coco Martin's character's like poor water-based community, and I thought that place was fantastic. Like I really think they should have stayed there more because I don't know, it just felt inherently kind of creepy, or it felt like something would be lurking around the corner. But then when they do get to the suburban areas, I think those are still put to very good use because you have a really kind of simple house, but just through the clever use of its like windows and like shadows around the corners and just doors and whatnot, like it really was able to make this very familiar looking place really, really creepy. Of course, the makeup is still great in this movie, even better than the first one, I think. And it's great that this movie still uses a lot more practical effects than CGI and whatnot. And I feel like the production design overall has much more defined personality, whereas in the first one, it was just kind of like boring suburban house and then suddenly random Chinese things. Here it really feels more Chinese, I guess. The sound mixing is great as always. They really know how to use like the surround sound or whatever. It really kind of heightens the audience's sense of location because sometimes you'll hear, let's say, Lotus Feet like walking down the stairs or like behind you, and you can really kind of feel it in the sound, and I think they used it very well. To me, the movie really is at its best when it goes for the chaos and doesn't really think about setting up scares too hard, because usually when they set up these scares, it just leads to disappointment because they're like set up for a stupid jump scare that doesn't really mean anything, isn't really scary, as opposed to when they just go for the chaos and the ensuing panic and the confusion is just inherently much more nerve-wracking than watching like a ghost walking towards you only for it to pop up in front of you. And while a lot of this story, to me at least, doesn't really make sense, I still felt like by the end there was a lot of tension, and not in the sense that I cared about any of the characters and their fate. I just felt like the movie is really kind of stepping up its game and like just going into much more chaos. And to be honest, none of the actors in this movie really have that much to do aside from like the standard demands of being in a horror movie, which are screaming and running away and just kind of saying some stale dialogue. But I do think that Coco Martin manages to convey like his desperation in the situation, because he's the neophyte in this movie. You know, the other characters have already experienced this, but he has no idea what to do with the Bago situation. So it's cool he was able to kind of convey that, as well as his different relationships with his different family members. Chris Aquino, I think, does better here than in the first one, because she doesn't have to act like a mother anymore, which is really annoying when it comes from her. Here, she's pretty much scared the entire time, and I think she does that well. Junie Gamboa and Ian Veneracion are alright. They don't have that much screen time. Again, like everyone else, they don't really have that much to do, which is a shame, because I feel like their characters are much more different from the main characters in this movie. And Cherry Pie Pikachu gets to have way more fun in this movie. She's kind of like the somewhat of a villain, because she's the only one who actually wants this bagua. She wants this good fortune even if other people die. And it's nice to see her kind of ham it up and deliver like a really slightly over the top portrayal of this really greedy woman. But of course, Chito Esronio is still the best thing about this movie. Just he has so much freedom in the way he directs and the way he constructs scenes. Like, you know, again, like I said in my first review for Feng Shui, like other directors might kind of feel constricted by the simple locations, but Chito Esronio finds a way to really translate from script to screen like these simple situations by finding like the most creative ways to do it using simple things. He also infuses a lot more humor into this movie, which is great to see. But at the same time, like his non-supernatural stuff gets really dark. And it hits much harder, I think, than the first one, because the first one had like some couple of scenes with like domestic violence and whatnot, and here the gimmick here is that the bagua, instead of killing you directly, it will kind of mess with your mind, so you end up killing yourself. And the way it does that sometimes is really messed up, and I was really glad to see it go that dark. And I have to admit that Chito Estrano was able to pull off a couple of effective jump scares. I mean, not in the sense that they meant anything or that they weren't stupid, because they were still stupid, but I just mean like in the placement of where the thing jumped out was kind of unexpected for me, and it did make me jump. But with that said, most of this movie is still really stupid, non-scary jump scares. I mean, like probably 90% of it. And that's a shame, because Chita Estrania really knows how to set up scenes that don't have to do with jump scares. One thing I was kind of disappointed with was that it didn't feel like a lot of balance was achieved among the protagonists. It didn't really feel like this is very balanced in terms of this being Lester's story and Joy's story. Like it just kind of jumped from one to the other without really any connection until the very end. A lot of scenes feel really unnecessary. They're obviously just there to get a cheap scare in there, or to hint at like these random zodiac signs and whatever. And that brings me to the writing, which is absolutely ridiculous. The stuff with the zodiac signs, it's really tiresome at this point. Again, everyone knows each other's zodiac signs. Except although Chito Estrania manages to play around with it, because instead of just putting one clear zodiac sign in there to signify who's gonna die, he puts in a lot of them, so you don't really know who's gonna die, but it's still kind of silly when you think about it. The characters are all unbelievable. They're, you know, cardboard cutout horror movie characters. The dialogue is just a lot of exposition about this lore we don't really care about anymore. And I just feel like a lot of the threats that this movie sets up in the beginning of the movie, that don't have to do with the bagua, are kind of wasted by the end, because eventually the movie finds a way to tie them into the bagua and they just become like cannon fodder for it. The plot doesn't make any sense really, and it just ends up with people running around, but I still actually had a lot of fun with this movie. I will say that it's actually okay, and they really hint at like a third one, which is really kind of silly also. But for me, if they're gonna make a third one, I want them to kind of like embrace the fun aspect of it, like Final Destination or something. But at the same time, I want to see how dark they can get, if they can top this one. But what did you guys think of Feng Shui 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.